Montana Territory, spring of 1883, the wind came hard off the plains when she ran. She was barefoot, her hem torn, breath coming short as she stumbled over dry roots and frost-brittle grass. 20 miles east of Fort Benton, the land rolled wide and empty, but the pounding of her heart was louder than the silence. Her father's voice still rang in her ears, low and mean. "You're worth nothing, girl, just like your mother." She had not looked back. Her name was Selah Boone. 22, with dark hair heavy as wet soil and a bruise high on her cheekbone. Her satchel carried only bread, a folded photograph of her mother, and $31 she had taken from the kitchen tin while her father drank himself stupid on corn whiskey. Her boots lay somewhere back near the fence row where she had climbed over in the dark. They had slowed her down. She had left them behind by late afternoon. Her feet were raw and bleeding. She collapsed near a dry creek bed, throat too tight to cry. But the quiet of the land held her like a hand, and she lay there a long while, eyes on the sky. Then came the sound of hooves. She tensed, pressed herself against the ground. The rider came from the west, astride a tall roan gelding, moving easy like he had time to spare. He spotted her quick, reined in, and dismounted in one clean motion. He was tall, lean, maybe 26. Dust clung to his boots, and a rifle hung over his shoulder. His eyes were a strange kind of blue, not cold, not sharp, just steady. "You hurt?" he asked. Selah pushed herself up slowly, blinking hard against the sun. "I do not want trouble," not offering any. She saw then he had saddlebags and a canvas bedroll. He wore his hat low, but not to hide, just the way men wore them when they had been in the sun too long. "I can keep moving," she said. "You are bleeding," he said simply, kneeling beside her. "Let me look at your feet." She hesitated, but he was already pulling a flask of clean water from his saddle. He poured it over her heels, careful as anything. She flinched, but not from the pain, from how gentle he was. "I am Holden Everett," he said after a while. "I have a small spread west of here. You can come back with me if you want, or I can ride to town and find someone else to help." Selah looked at him. "Why would you help me?" Holden shrugged. "Because you look like you need it." She studied his face. He was not handsome in the way books talked about. His nose was a little crooked, his jaw covered in dust and stubble, but something in her chest eased when he spoke. "My name is Selah Boone," she said. He nodded. "All right, Miss Boone." "Can you ride behind me?" She nodded, though her legs shook when she stood. He helped her up slow, without touching her more than he had to. She held to the saddle horn and they rode west. Holden's cabin sat in a narrow draw near the river, tucked between cottonwoods. It was small, one room, a stone hearth, a table with 2 chairs. He led her inside and gave her a blanket, then set to making a stew. The smell of it made her stomach twist with hunger. "Why do you live out here alone?" she asked as he stirred. He glanced at her. "Some folks are not fit for towns. You seem decent enough." He did not answer right away. "Then I tried once. Got told I was too quiet, too much of a loner, so I came out here, built this place with my own hands." He passed her a tin bowl. She ate slowly, listening to the fire crackle. "You got family?" he asked. Selah stared at the flames. "Not anymore." He nodded like he understood. "You do not have to say more than you want to." That night, he gave her the cot and slept near the door. She heard him roll over once or twice, but otherwise he was still as stone. In the morning, her feet were swollen, but he had boiled water and torn old linen into strips. "You should let them heal," he said. "Stay a few days, rest. I do not want to be a burden. You are not." That was the first time she cried. Quiet into the blanket with the stew still warm in her hands. He did not say anything, just sat near the hearth and whittled a piece of driftwood. 3 days passed like that. She helped where she could, shelling beans, washing the tin dishes in the stream. He showed her how to bandage her feet better. He taught her how to hold a rifle steady, though she trembled the first time she pulled the trigger. One morning, she stood at the doorway, looking out at the cottonwoods. Holden came up beside her with 2 cups of coffee. "Do you want to talk about who hurt you?" he asked. She wrapped her hands around the cup. "My father. He told me I was worthless, that no man would ever want me, that I was just like my mother, weak, useless. She died when I was 13. Holden's jaw tensed, but his voice stayed soft. "He was wrong," he said. "I would never make it on my own. You ran barefoot across open country. You are still standing." She looked at him. I do not know what I am supposed to do now. He held her gaze. You could stay. Her heart kicked up. Why would you want me here? He looked at her steady, no stammer, no embarrassment. Because you are worth something. You are worth everything. She could not speak. Her throat closed up again, but not from fear, from something else. That night she sat beside him at the fire, their shoulders close. He handed her the carved piece of wood, a small bird, delicate, smoothed by his careful hands. Thank you, she whispered. He did not lean in right away. He waited until she turned to him, until her eyes searched his face. Then he kissed her soft, sure, careful. And when she kissed him back, she felt something open in her chest that she had not known was locked. Selah did not sleep on the cot that night. She slept with her head on Holden's chest, his arm wrapped around her, the fire low, the wind quiet outside. In the morning, she made coffee while he fed the horses. When he came back in, she looked at him and said, I want to stay. He smiled, not wide, not showy, just enough to reach his eyes. Then stay, he said. This is your home now, too. By the end of the first week, Selah had learned the rhythm of Holden's land. He rose with the pale wash of dawn, not from habit but necessity. The land needed tending, fences checked, water hauled, animals fed. Selah woke to the scrape of the barn door swinging open, the creak of the pump handle outside, the low murmur of him talking to the horses like they were old friends. She folded the quilt and swept the floor with the stiff, bristled broom he kept by the door. One morning, while he was loading a feed sack onto the sled, she asked, Where did you learn all this? Holden shifted the weight onto his shoulder. My uncle raised cattle down near Miles City. I worked for him after my mother passed. Stayed long enough to learn what mattered. She followed as he walked toward the lean-to, her boots borrowed from his shed and too large, scuffing the packed dirt. Did you get on well with him? He was fair, quiet man. Didn't offer much, but he didn't take anything from me either. Selah ran her fingers along the rough lumber of the fence. That sounds like peace. Holden nodded. It was, until he died. After that, I came north. The wind picked up, tugging strands of her hair loose from the braid she'd tied that morning. Is that why you built the cabin? She asked. To keep something of your own. He set the sack down and leaned against the post. I think I just wanted quiet. A place where nothing followed me. Selah looked at him, eyes narrowed against the sun. You think quiet can keep out the past? No, he said, but it can give you room to breathe. They didn't speak again until the fencing wire ran short, then Holden tilted his head toward the wagon. I'll ride into Fort Benton tomorrow. Could use more salt and flour too. You'll be all right here? Selah's hands tightened around the rail. I'd like to come. He studied her, not in doubt but consideration. It's a long ride. I want to see it just once. He gave a single nod. We leave early. They rode out before the sky fully lightened, Holden's wagon creaking beneath the weight of empty crates. Selah sat beside him, the hem of her dress tucked beneath her legs, the wind dry against her face. The road was nothing more than ruts and prairie grass, but she watched the horizon open wider with each mile. They passed a sod house tucked low against a hill, smoke curling thin from the chimney. A woman with a child on her hip waved from the doorway, and Selah lifted her hand in return. Holden said, Folks out here make do with little. She glanced at him. That's what I'm trying to learn. At the trading post, Holden traded dried meat and tanned hides for supplies. Selah wandered among the shelves of bolts of calico and tinware, her fingers brushing over things she hadn't seen in years. She paused before a small stack of books, their spines cracked with use. Holden joined her, setting a sack of cornmeal on the counter. You read much. I used to, she said. My mother taught me before she passed. He picked up a worn volume of Emerson essays and handed it to her. Take it, she hesitated. I don't need it. He looked at her without pressure, just quiet certainty. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have it. Back at the cabin, the sky burned orange as the sun dropped behind the pines. Selah sat on the porch step, the book open in her lap, though she hadn't turned a page in some time. Holden came around from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. You didn't say much on the way back, he said. She closed the book. The town was full of people. I forgot what that felt like. Too much, she shook her head. Just strange, like I was looking at something that used to belong to me but doesn't anymore. Holden eased down beside her. Maybe it never did. Selah looked over, her voice soft. Did you ever feel like you had to earn your place in the world? He leaned forward, forearms on his knees. Every day, the silence between them stretched, not heavy but full. Then she said, I want to help more with the animals. Maybe learn how to ride better. If I'm staying, I should carry my weight. Holden turned to her. You've already brought more here than you know. She held his gaze. I need to feel it. Then tomorrow we start with the barn. There's a heifer due to calve soon. You'll help me watch her? Selah nodded. I'd like that. That night she laid the new book beside her on the shelf Holden had cleared for her things. There weren't many, just a shawl, a hairbrush, and now the book, but they felt like the beginning of something solid. When she crawled beneath the quilt, Holden reached for her hand. She let him hold it, his thumb brushing once across her knuckles, then still, she whispered into the dark, I never thought I'd feel safe. His voice came low and certain. You are. And for the first time in longer than she could name, she believed it. By late May, the snowmelt had soaked the draws and turned the earth rich and dark. The river ran high and the cottonwoods wore full green. Selah stood knee-deep in the garden bed behind the cabin, pushing seeds into damp soil. Her sleeves were rolled past the elbow, fingers black with dirt. Holden had shown her how to space the rows by thumb widths and twine lines, and though her back ached, she liked the way the work made the air feel cleaner in her lungs. Holden was repairing the shed roof, the steady rhythm of his hammer echoing across the draw. She glanced back once, watched him shift his weight to climb higher on the ladder. He moved like someone used to carrying things alone. She wiped her hands on her skirt and turned back to the soil. Ma'am, the voice came from the edge of the trees, thin and cautious. A boy stood there, maybe 13, his hair sun-bleached and sticking flat to his temples. His boots were too big, his trousers patched at both knees. He held his hat in both hands, eyes darting from Selah to the cabin. She straightened slowly. You lost, he shook his head. Looking for Mr. Everett, my pa sent me. Holden came down from the roof without hurry, wiping his hands on a cloth. What's the trouble, Cal? The boy turned toward him, relief loosening his shoulders. Came from the Bowden's place. Cow went down last night, no calf yet. Pa said if anyone could pull it through, it'd be you. Holden nodded once. Tell him I'll be there by sundown. Got a rope and kit in the barn. The boy hesitated, eyes flicking again to Selah. Didn't know you had someone here. Holden reached for his bridle hanging on the rail. I do. Selah felt the boy's curiosity linger, but he said nothing more. He tipped his head and disappeared back into the trees the way he'd come. Holden led his gelding from the barn, saddle already cinched. I'll be gone overnight, maybe 2 if the cow's sick. Selah stepped to the porch, brushing soil from her hands. What should I mind while you're gone? Keep the fire fed. Bring the horses in before dark. If the creek rises, use the back path to the spring instead. She nodded. I can manage. He paused, then stepped down and handed her a folded kerchief. Keep this on your belt. It's mine. Folks around know it. She ran her thumb over the worn fabric. You think someone will come by? Unlikely. He met her gaze. But if they do, they'll know you're not alone. That evening, the cabin felt hollow without his boots near the door or the sound of him splitting kindling before dusk. Selah lit the lantern early and sat at the table with a pan of beans cooling beside her. She read until the flame burned low, then banked the hearth and lay down, Holden's kerchief tucked beneath her pillow. By the second day, quiet had settled over the land again. She gathered eggs, hauled water, and kept the fire going. When a storm rolled in from the west, she hung a blanket over the window and sat on the floor, the wind pressing against the walls like a hand trying to get in. He returned the morning after, boots caked in mud, shirt damp from rain. His horse looked wearier than he did. She made it, he said, setting his kit beside the door. Calf too. Selah took his hat and hung it from the peg. You look half frozen. He gave a nod and sat at the table, stretching his legs beneath it. She poured him coffee and set down a heel of bread, then slid into the seat across from him. He ate without hurry, rain still dripping from the brim of his coat where it hung by the door. After a while, he looked up. You managed fine. Selah leaned her forearms on the table. I did. Thought I saw a fox near the henhouse last night, but it didn't come close. He folded his hands around the cup. You're learning faster than most, she tilted her head. Why does that surprise you? It doesn't, he said. But I can see how hard you push yourself to prove it. Her throat tightened, but she didn't turn away. I want to be useful. I don't want to be looked at the way he used to. You're not, Holden said. Not here. Not by me. She stood and moved to the hearth, poking at the coals until the heat flared. Then she turned and said, Will you teach me to shoot well enough to hunt? Holden leaned back in his chair. You planning to bring down an elk? I want to know I can feed us if I have to. He stood and crossed to the shelf where his rifle leaned. Then we'll start tomorrow, first light. They didn't speak after that, but as she washed the tin cups, she felt his gaze rest on her for a long time. That night, as they lay beneath the quilt, Selah whispered, What would you have done if I hadn't been near that creek bed? Holden's breath stirred her hair. Gone home and drank my coffee like any other morning. Never known I was missing something. She turned toward him in the dark, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw, and now he didn't hesitate. Now I know I'm not alone anymore. She lay her head against his chest, listening to the slow, even rhythm beneath her ear. The wind had quieted and the rain had passed. The land outside lay soaked and clean. Their fire burned low, but steady. By early June, the land had warmed enough for the hills to buzz with insects and the scent of pine to rise thick after the rain. The days stretched long, and Selah had come to know their shape like the seams of a well-worn dress, how the sky turned silver just before dawn, how Holden's hands moved when he saddled the gelding, how the air shifted when a storm was 2 valleys away. One morning, Holden handed her a rifle with fresh oil worked into the stock. You've earned your own, he said, watching her grip the weight of it. Selah ran her fingers over the grain. It's sturdy. It was my mother's, he said. She hunted better than most men I knew. Selah looked up. You never told me about her. She was part Dakota, quiet but not gentle. He leaned against the shed wall, arms crossed. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Selah turned the rifle in her hands, the metal cool from the night. What happened to her? She got sick when I was 14. My father had already passed in a mining collapse out near Helena. His voice didn't shift, but his eyes darkened. After she was gone, I left what little was left of our place and went to my uncle's. Selah stepped closer, the rifle resting against her hip. You never minded being alone. I didn't think much about it, he said. Until you showed up and changed everything I thought I knew. She looked away, the breeze catching her sleeve. I didn't mean to. I'm glad you did. That evening, they walked the ridgeline above the cabin, the rifle slung across her back. Below, the creek wound silver through the cottonwoods, and the horses grazed in the open pasture. Selah bent to pick a sprig of yarrow, turning the leaves between her fingers. You ever think about leaving this place? She asked. Holden squatted beside a patch of wild onion, plucking one from the soil. I used to when the winters got hard, thought about heading south, maybe Arizona territory, but it's not about where you are, really. It's about who you're with. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, There's still things I don't know how to say. You don't have to, I want to, she said, but it's like the words get caught before they reach my mouth. Holden stood, brushing dirt from his hands. Then say them however you need to, a look, a hand on the shoulder. Sometimes that's more than enough. They descended the ridge in silence, the light thinning behind them. When they reached the porch, Selah stopped him with a hand at his wrist. My mother used to hum when she was nervous. I forgot that until just now. Holden waited. She'd hum while she brushed my hair, she said, and I'd sit real still because it was the only time the house didn't feel like it was caving in. Holden stepped closer. I was so sure I'd never be able to feel safe again, she said. He took her hand and guided her inside, shutting the door behind them. Later, as the fire settled into embers and the night pressed against the windows, Selah lay beside him, her head resting in the hollow beneath his collarbone. I don't want to keep waiting for something to go wrong. You don't have to, he said. This isn't something that falls apart. The stillness between them was not empty but rooted. I want to build something with you, she said quietly. He turned toward her. Then we will, a life, a home. The kind they said you'd never have. She closed her eyes, the weight of those words settling deep. I never believed it could be real. You don't have to believe it yet, he said. Just stay. I already have. He kissed her forehead and they lay there, wrapped in the hush of a promise neither had to name. Outside, the wind turned the leaves and the earth held steady beneath them. By midsummer, the high grass had ripened to gold, and the air held the dry crackle of heat beneath the sun. Selah rose earlier now, before the light reached the edges of the trees, and moved through the morning with quiet certainty. She'd begun keeping a ledger of what they planted, how much they took in from the hens and the creek traps, and what they'd need to trade come fall. Her handwriting, once cramped from disuse, now filled the pages with steady loops. Holden had cleared a patch of land south of the barn where they planned to plant winter wheat. He'd shown her how to sharpen the scythe, how to feel the grain give beneath the blade without breaking the stalk below. She learned fast. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to carry her share and then some. One evening, as they washed up beside the creek, Holden leaned over the water, letting the cold run through his fingers. "Had a letter come through the post rider," he said, flicking droplets from his hand. "From my uncle's widow. She's headed west with her daughter. Says they'll pass near Fort Benton next week." Selah wrung out the washcloth. "Will they stop here?" She asked if they could stay a night. "Wagon'll need rest." "Of course," Selah said. "We can make up the cot." Holden nodded. "She was kind to me, not warm but steady." Selah dipped her cloth again. "You ever think about what it might be like, having kin close by?" He looked up. "I used to think I didn't need it. But I reckon that's changed." The next week brought a wind from the north and the creak of wagon wheels before noon. Martha Everett was lean-boned and sharp-eyed, dressed in a dark traveling skirt with dust clinging to the hem. Her daughter, Anna, wore boots scuffed from miles and a sun-bleached bonnet that didn't quite hide the wary tilt of her chin. "You've done well for yourself," Martha said to Holden as she stepped down. Her gaze swept the cabin, the cleared fields, the stacked wood. "Didn't think you had it in you." Selah stepped forward, hand out. "We're glad to have you." Martha took it without hesitation. "And you are Selah Boone. I live here." Anna studied her quietly. "Did you build this place too?" "Not with my hands. But I live in it like I did." "Good," Anna said. "It's the living that matters." That night, they sat around the table with cornbread and beans, and Selah listened as Holden and Martha talked about years past, names Selah didn't know. A winter storm that had taken the roof off the cattle shed, the sour-tempered mule that wouldn't pull straight. Anna hardly spoke, but her eyes never stopped moving, always watching. When the women turned in, Holden stayed at the hearth with Selah, the firelight soft on his face. "I was afraid it'd feel like the past coming to call," he said, "but it doesn't." Selah rested her head on his shoulder. "That's because you're not the man you were then." He looked down. "And you're the reason for that." In the morning, Martha helped Selah with the biscuits, her movements efficient. "You're not what I expected," she said, not unkindly. Selah pressed dough into shape. "Neither's this life." "But I've come to love it," Martha nodded. "That's the only way it works. Love it, or it eats you." By midday, the wagon was loaded and the women climbed aboard. Anna held Selah's gaze for a long moment. "If you're ever down near the Judith Basin, come by. We're staying with my cousin for a spell." "Safe travels," Selah said, and meant it. After the dust of their departure had settled, Selah sat beneath the cottonwood near the porch, needle in hand mending one of Holden's shirts. He came up behind her, dropped a small bundle in her lap. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I traded for last time I rode into town, meant to wait, but I don't see much sense in that now." She unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a silver ring, simple and plain, but beautifully made. Her breath caught. "I want this with you," he said. "Not just the planting and the chores, but the whole of it. The quiet mornings, the hard seasons, all of it." She looked up, eyes wet. "Yes, they married under the cottonwood with the creek singing behind them and the horses watching from the pasture. The only witness was the land itself, and they didn't need more than that." She wore a dress she'd sewn from muslin traded months ago, and he gave her the ring as the sun touched the edge of the horizon. Afterward, they shared bread and sweet preserves from the root cellar and danced in the grass while the wind moved around them like blessing. Years passed, and the fields grew richer under their care. They added a second room to the cabin, planted apple saplings, and brought in a milk cow. In time, a cradle sat near the hearth, and Selah hummed soft lullabies in the evenings. Holden never said much, but his hands were always steady on her back when she rose from bed, on her shoulder when the baby fussed, on the small of her spine when she leaned against him just to feel his warmth. They did not speak often of the years before, but they lived in a way that honored what they had come through together. And in that quiet, enduring life, they found not just peace but joy, not just comfort but belonging. And the land, always wide and waiting, held their story like it had always known it would end this way.